This hearing is called to order, the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee of the House International Relations Committee. And on February 17th, the first 400 Ashraf MEK members began to relocate from our Camp Liberty, which is also now called Camp Hariva, a former U.S. military base near Baghdad International Airport. This was in accordance with an agreement between the United States and Iraq signed on Christmas Day. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees was formally recognized and has formally recognized the residents of Ashraf as asylum seekers and persons of concern, which entitles them to protection and humane treatment. Since February, over half of the Camp Ashraf residents have been shifted to Camp Liberty for UNHCR processing with the aim of moving them out of Iraq to safety in other countries. At a court hearing here in the District of Columbia on May 8th, a State Department lawyer trying to defend the continued listing of the MEK as a terrorist organization claimed that Camp Ashraf had never been inspected by U.S. forces. His implication is that the MEK might not have lived up to its part of the 2003 bargain by which it disarmed in exchange for U.S. protection. The reaction at Camp Ashraf has been for the MEK to halt movement to Camp Liberty and demand an inspection to prove that they are not armed. If the inspection does not take place until after Camp Ashraf is evacuated, false evidence can be planted in the empty camp by Iraqi authorities or Iranian agents. So it would have to take place now while the camp is still in MEK hands. I would like to know whether the State Department understood the possible effects of their lawyer's argument. Earlier reports implied that matters might be improving and might actually be moving in the right direction towards a delisting of the MEK, but now the whole issue is up in the air for no good reason. As to the movement that has already taken place, the MEK members have complained that water is in short supply at Camp Liberty. Electricity is also a problem as the camp is not connected to the national grid and the residents rely on small generators. And there are reports that their personal possessions are being looted by Iraqi troops who have not allowed them to move everything to Camp Liberty. Severe restrictions have been placed on the ability of those at Camp Liberty to communicate with the outside world or to see their lawyers. Living conditions are austere, and Iraqi security forces have deployed armored vehicles and heavy weapons around and in the camp. As of May 10th, only 323 MEK members had been interviewed by the UNHCR, and will Iraq allow such a slow pace to continue, and will Iran allow that? If this slow pace continues, MEK people will be put in jeopardy. Iraqi hostility and Iranian plotting must be taken seriously in the wake of the April 8, 2011 attack on Camp Ashraf by Iraqi forces that murdered 34 unarmed civilians and wounded over 300 others. Iraq may have promised the UNHCR that there would be no forced return of the MEK members to Iran, but can the Maliki government be trusted given its bloody record? For the record, I have been denied permission to hold investigative hearings on the massacre at Camp Ashraf and to explore why the MEK is still designated as a terrorist organization. It is of great concern that roadblocks have been placed to prevent this oversight and investigation subcommittee from doing its job when it comes to this aspect of American foreign policy. Here to give us an update on the situation in Iraq is Ambassador Daniel Fried, and the State Department's special advisor on Camp Ashraf. Before assuming this position, he was special envoy for the closure of Guantanamo detainee facility. Prior to that, he served from 2005-2009 as Assistant Secretary for the State for European and Eurasian Affairs, a career member of the Foreign Service, which he joined in 1977. He has served on the National Security Councils of President Obama and Clinton, and was ambassador to Poland from November 1997 to May of 2000, not a calm period in Polish history. So we have with us today a real troubleshooter, proving that they all don't look like John Wayne. And with that, Mr. Carnahan, would you have an opening statement as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize I didn't bring any good jokes to start off with. But
I thought I'd get a laugh out of that John Wayne line.
Anyway, I do want to say thank you to the chairman for his persistence on this issue. And this is the third hearing in the past year on Camp Ashraf. Ambassador Freed, thank you for testifying again in front of this subcommittee. This hearing provides a timely opportunity for us to check on the processing status of the residents at the camp. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank many of my constituents from back home in St. Louis, Missouri for their work on this important issue. They are a great example of citizens being involved to make a difference for those in need. In 2003, the residents of Camp Ashraf were granted protected status under the Geneva Convention. Pursuant to the status of forces agreement between the U.S. and the Iraqi governments, however, jurisdiction of the camp has been under the jurisdiction of the Iraqi government since 2009. And since late December 2011, the agreement allowing the residents to be moved to Camp Liberty, approximately 2/3 of all residents have been relocated. Ambassador, I will be especially interested to hear about the progress that has been made through our bilateral and multilateral efforts to move the remaining residents, as well as an update on the interviews and refugee status determinations by the UNHCR. Reports suggest that UNHCR's process of conducting individual interviews is going slowly, as are the refugee status determinations that need to be made in order to provide for their permanent relocation. It has become clear this process is going to take longer than expected and longer than most RSDs conducted by UNHCR. It is imperative that there is sufficient time to ensure that this is done in an orderly manner, that it also guarantees the safety of the residents. I'm interested to hear what discussions are being undertaken to ensure that this process will be allowed to continue beyond any predetermined time deadlines. Certainly a long-term solution for the residents is of course needed once UNHCR completes its interviews and refugee status determinations. It would be beneficial to hear some of the long-term possibilities, including what conversations have been had with the residents. I'd also be interested to hear about what Camp Ashraf in the broader context of U.S. policy toward Iraq. While the safety of the residents of Camp Ashraf pose immediate concern, I'd also like to hear the witnesses discuss how our relationship with Iraq has been affected, as well as how it's impacted the Camp Ashraf issue. I look forward to hearing from you today. Thank you again for being here, Ambassador.
Thank you. Another member of the committee, Judge Poe from Texas. You are welcome to make as long a remarks, opening remarks, as you would choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having this hearing. Ambassador Free, thank you for being here. I also want to thank many friends from Texas and other parts of the country that are here today who are concerned about their families, their loved ones, and other patriots in Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty. 4 years ago, the MEK filed their petition against the State Department to delist them as a foreign terrorist organization. It's been 2 years since the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the State Department violated the MEK's due process rights. And so since 2011, June the 6th, the ball has been in the State Department's court. State Department's only reason for disregarding the law is that they apparently are too busy with other things. The latest excuse is that the Secretary is waiting for Camp Ashraf to close. I wonder what difference that makes. Now we hear a new excuse, that there are worries from the State Department about alleged weapons in the camp. But on June 18, 2003, U.S. General Ray Odierno said that the MEK has been completely disarmed, I further quote, and we have taken up all small arms and heavy equipment. That was our own U.S. military general stating he was completely confident there were no weapons in Camp Ashraf. And just yesterday, U.S. Brigadier General David Phillips said he, quote, systematically searched every square kilometer of the 36 square kilometer facility with American troops in 2003 and found no weapons. Two generals are on record that they completely searched the camp. So why is the State Department now alleging that there are weapons in the camp? Produce one of those weapons, any weapon that has allegedly been found in that camp, but yet they don't appear, probably because they don't exist. Does the State Department believe the residents rearmed while they were under U.S. control from 2003 to 2008, or that they rearmed after we left? That's, of course, unlikely and absurd, given twice when the camp was attacked by the Iraqis with automatic weapons and dozens of residents in Camp Ashraf were killed and murdered. No weapons were ever used by those residents to defend themselves. All they had were rocks, and they threw rocks when they could to protect themselves and their families. So are the rocks the weapons the State Department's concerned about? We don't know. And once the camp is closed, will the State Department be given permission by the government of Iraq to inspect the camp? And who's to say, as the chairman pointed out, that the Iraqis or the Iranians even wouldn't actually plant weapons in the camp when the camp is vacated? There are lots of questions and problems with State Department's latest excuse not to make a decision on the FTO status of the MEK. 4 years later, the State Department is still denying the due process rights of the MEK. It's time for the decision. The time for delay is over. No pistols, no rifles, no bazookas, no BB gun, no slingshot has been found in Camp Ashraf. Where are the weapons that they say exist? It appears to me the State Department's playing into the politics of the Iranian mullahs and the Iraqi Prime Minister Maliki. State must pick a horse and ride it. Hopefully they'll pick the side of the citizens of Camp Ashraf, Camp Liberty, and not the side of the little fellow from the desert, Ahmadinejad. And I'll yield back to the chairman.